Hey guys, this is Mike with Coffee Cup Christianity, and we are getting jacked for Jesus. We're continuing our series called Tough Questions. We are going to hit up the next question today, which is our freedom worth all of the suffering in the world? Let's get right into it. So in our last video on Tough Questions, we talked about how an individual has free will to do good or do evil, right? Well, in this video, we're actually going to kind of talk about what happens when there's like innocent victims, right? Of like one person's will. So we're going to kind of talk more about like the Hitler kind of, Hitler-Stalin kind of thing, where one person imposes their will on innocent people, and how does that somehow outweigh the risk, right? Like, did God take too big of a risk in giving us free will, which then resulted in suffering? And so we're going to kind of touch on that today. So stick with me, and I'm actually going to answer this question in 4 bullet points. Before we get into those 4 bullet points, I would just ask, if you are enjoying these videos, smash that subscribe button. I love doing this. I'm having fun. As long as I have fun, I'm going to keep doing it. So let's get right into it. All right, so bullet point number 1, the risk of freedom is exactly proportional to its potential for good. Ooh, that was a mouthful. Okay, let me explain. If I only had the freedom to hurt one person, I would also only have the freedom to help one person or raise one person up, right? And so it's kind of a big thing. Like for every Hitler and Stalin, there are an equal number of Martin Luther Kings and Mother Teresa's and Gandhi's and things like that. And so we have to realize that while the potential is great for harm, the potential is also great for good. If we have the potential to slay or oppress millions of people, then we also have the potential to love or save or liberate millions of people. See, there's always risk involved when we have freedom. Bullet point number 2, love hurts. You ever been in a relationship? You ever been divorced? You ever raised kids? You ever have a friendship that kind of falls apart? I mean, that's part of love, right? Like, we love, we hurt, kids disobey, but we still love them. In fact, if my kids disobeyed me on one occasion and it really hurt and I suffered, I still love them. In fact, if I didn't love them anymore, people would take note and kind of be like, man, that's really cold, right? See, God doesn't give us freedom for the sake of freedom. Freedom is only the vehicle, whereas love is the destination. That's why God gives us freedom. He gives us freedom to love. Bullet point number 3, the risk is not just to us. God takes a huge risk in giving freedom to us because it hurts him. In fact, in the Old Testament, God speaks through the prophet Hosea. God describes his own relationship with his people that he loves as being in an unfaithful marriage. God talks about being the groom and the Israelites are the bride. And in this particular story, God says, you guys are basically acting like an unfaithful wife. And God is the one who's like, hey, come back, come home, I'll take care of it. It's okay, I forgive you, come back. And keeps getting hurt by this person. And so, not only that, but in the New Testament, I don't know if you remember this story, but Jesus, who is God's son, comes to earth as a human and is like killed, right? Like, he sacrifices his own son. Like, his son dies. And I'm sure that grieves God. I'm sure that hurts, right? And he demonstrates to us what love looks like. Love is not just love and happy, right? Part of love is suffering, right? And bullet point 4, if the end of our life was all that there was, then yes, you might be able to make the argument that it's not worth the risk. But unfortunately, or fortunately, that's not the case. There is much more. If you look at, let's say 100,000 years, and the average person lives, let's say 50 years or 75 years or whatever it is, that's a very small portion of 100,000. But that's not even the amount of time you get to spend in eternity with Jesus in heaven, right? It's eternity. So if you look at eternity versus a very small portion of our lives, even a life filled with suffering gets to spend eternity with Jesus. So when you think about it in perspective, it really kind of makes a difference. The Bible kind of sums it up in Romans 8:18, and I want to share that with you today. And it goes something like this. I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. I think that verse sums it up really well. It's just not even worth comparing. It's not worth comparing. The amount of suffering we could experience on earth will never compare to the amount of joy and peace that we'll experience in heaven. And so the answer is the risk of freedom worth suffering? Yeah, it is. It is worth it. Because we live in a temporary place. This is just the rest area. And we got to get back on the highway. And the final destination, is God, is heaven. So, I hope that's just jacking you up, man. I hope you take that and you're like, man, I feel good. I feel good about that. Maybe you don't. I don't know, but I hope you feel good, and I can't wait to see you guys next time.